All right, welcome back, True Seeker. It is Sunday, January 14th, 2024. Of course, tomorrow is MLK Day. Just put up a video about the killing in Memphis this weekend where MLK was killed. It was the brother of a relatively famous rapper from Memphis. Check out that video if you missed it. Anyhow, what I want to focus on is again the World Economic Forum in Switzerland this Wednesday, January 17th. Is hosting a meeting to prepare for disease X. And this is something they've been talking about for 2018. The world authorities are anticipating that there's going to be a new virus in this world that has all these changing conditions, climate, and everything else. And they're theorizing that this next disease that's going to come, it's going to be 20 times more deadly than COVID was, which I guess means it'll barely be deadly because COVID was what, 99.9% survivable if you were a normal human being. But anyhow, they're saying it's going to be 20 times more deadly, which does sound scarier. And again, we want to talk about why they're doing this January 17th. We're going to look at it in light of the last pandemic and its declaration on March 11th, 2020. We're also going to look at the Clade X simulation. If you still haven't watched that, it is still online and you should watch it. It was the prior simulation to Event 201 done by the same group of people on May 15th, 2018. Going to look at the connection with this simulation and seemingly the date of preparing for disease X, which is just 3 days away. We're also going to talk about where Mr. Elon Musk fits in with rebranding Twitter as X. Recall he did that on the 24th day of July, 24/7, while the country was 247, the US that is, and why the Illuminati was 247. And of course, X is the 24th letter, doing it on the 24th day of the month. And then again, they put up the big X at the headquarters, but they had to take it down after it got petitioned by 24 states. So now here we are in 2024, and you're having preparing for disease X, where it's getting more hype than it's gotten before. And again, you also have the second Great American Solar Eclipse upcoming April 8th, and the pattern of the eclipse from 2017 and this upcoming eclipse, they make pretty much a perfect X over the nation. And then, of course, you also have the SPARS pandemic, another recent simulation, which is projected for 2025, the year that's mentioned in They Live, where, the other ones are supposedly supposed to have full control over the world by 2025. And then also upcoming, not too far off, this May, something that's been going on with the World Health Organization and participating nations, they plan to have their pandemic treaty in place by May 2024. You might recall the first meeting for this took place at the same time the war broke out in Russia, Ukraine. If you forgot, we'll go over all of it. But again, let's start right here. January 17th, 3 days from now, 2024, this meeting at the World Economic Forum, the same World Economic Forum that simulated the coronavirus pandemic the exact same day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, October 18th, 2019, and they called it Event 201. Then the pandemic was declared on March 11th, where 201 is the number 311 in base 8 counting, like March 11th is 311. And again, from March 11th, 2020, the date that pandemic was declared, to January 17th is 201 weeks on the nose exactly. 201 weeks. It's also 46 months, and who equals 46, as in the World Health Organization? That's who. And as for what they're calling this meeting, preparing for disease X, it does have the gematria of 311. Again, 201 is 311 in base 8 counting. In the short video I put out the other day, somebody left a comment. They pointed out that vaccines for disease X does equate to 201, which is interesting. And if you're new here, 201 is a very special number to the Jesuit order and their history, as well as the Illuminati, which is founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, who died in history 201 days after the anniversary of their establishment. And this matters because the leader of the World Economic Forum that's putting on this Preparing for Disease X is Klaus Schwab, who is a Jesuit. And with regards to Clade X, where the same people who participated in Event 201 participated in Clade X, from May 15th, 2018, remember 2 years to the day later, Operation Warp Speed was declared to rush out the jabs. And May 15th is Mercuralia, where mercury is the debated ingredient in jabs. Again, you're not allowed to entertain the debate on big censorship tube. But you might recall prior to 2012, there was a lot of videos on YouTube talking about the potential dangers. And then all of a sudden overnight, Google just scrubbed thousands of videos from their platform. And then next thing you knew, they were scrubbing all kinds of topics from their platform. But it really started with jabs back in 2012. And that is what prompted me to start making YouTube videos. It was weird. I'd always spoken out and attended events and stuff. I never thought about making content online. But then seeing all the censorship of the people questioning jabs, Jenny McCarthy and beyond, it made me say, maybe I should use this big tech platform to speak out while I still can. And then I just haven't stopped since. But anyhow, from May 15, 2018, Clade X to Preparing for Disease X, it's 2,074 days, which is interesting because the key digits there are 274. Again, 274 is important to the Catholic Church and the Jesuits because they've celebrated the sun's birthday on 12/25 since 274 AD. The Jesuit motto, Isus Hominum Salvator, equals 274. But really the number that screams out to me is that it's 68 months later. 68 months. Remember, coronavirus was coined in 1968. That infamous year. Fentanyl also approved in 1968 by the FDA. And then all the other plans that went into motion in 1968, a very fateful year from MLK. Again, MLK killed on the 95th day of 1968, named after Martin Luther, who wrote the 95 Theses. Tomorrow, Martin Luther King Jr. would have turned 95 years old. But, yeah, if you don't know about 1968, although we talk about 911 made the national emergency dialing code, World Trade Center construction began, and on and on and on. Anyhow, 68 months later, this number came up a lot in the rituals with the pandemic. And there's also a relationship between the numbers 201 and 68. And what it is the word helios is 68 and heliocentrism is 201. And again, heliocentrism, the model was agreed to in the 16th century, the century the Jesuits were created. Helios is the sun. Heliocentrism is the model that says the sun's at the center of it all. The word Catholicism is 68, like the word mathematics. And again, we're on the Catholic Church's calendar. The Jesuits serve the Catholic Church, and all of these rituals are mathematics, perfectly synced up in time. So, again, just what are the odds that it lines up this way? The Preparing for Disease X. And for the record, solar system also equals 68, like mathematics and Catholicism. And again, Helios, which is the Greek name for the sun. As for Elon Musk, look at this. Think about this. We've been talking about how this is such a setup because they're claiming that Elon Musk is battling for free speech. He's nothing but a Jesuit pawn and puppet, which, as we've demonstrated a bazillion times, like when they declared him the world's richest man on the anniversary of Nikola Tesla's death. And it was the 78th anniversary of his death when both Tesla and Jesuit equal 78. But again, he's supposedly Mr. Censorship, and you've heard people on the left complaining that he's going to let people get away with misinformation, and that misinformation could be catastrophic. If you've watched cable news in the time that he's taken over Twitter, there's been people come on and say, had his misinformation been allowed on a major platform, it would have resulted in millions of more deaths in the time of the pandemic. And it's just like, where do they get these talking head people? What are they talking about? People still coming on talking about, how great the jab was and how many lives it saved. It's like, in what reality? I mean, all the people I know that got jabbed got the most cases of COVID. Like my sister, she keeps getting sick. My dad didn't get it. My mom didn't get it. I didn't get it. We've all been healthy. My sister and all of her kids got it, and her husband, they're now divorced. He's gotten a really bad case of cancer and is probably going to die soon. And he's not even that old. He's in his early 60s. And, my sister and her family are just nonstop sick. And I keep seeing these people on TV talking about how great the jab was. Sweet lady, people at work. She just lost a coworker in their mid-30s, dead in their sleep. Another coworker also got cancer. He's since solved it, but I mean, it's just like he's in his 30s too and got cancer. A young woman who works there is in her 20s, has breast cancer. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, you can't really talk about it, but just these people go on TV and talk about the efficacy and how effective it was and how many lives it saved. It's like, in what world? In what world? And then meanwhile, the people like ourselves who have all the evidence that this isn't true, we're not allowed to say anything. Misinformation. You're taken down for misinformation. It's like, sorry, I'm just reporting my reality. I've been healthy, didn't comply with anything because I know the TV's full of shit and all the talking heads on it. But anyway, coming back to Elon Musk, who they're saying it could cause all these problems with him having this platform. Look at this, you guys. Look at this. From the day that he rebranded, Monday, July 24th, 24/7, again, while the U.S. is 247 years old, while the Illuminati is 247 years old. You know what else is interesting about 247 and the moon? Or not the moon, but the Illuminati? The moon is illuminated by the sun. Don't ever forget that the moon landing was on the 201st day of the year and Neil Alden Armstrong equals 201. Or that it happened in the year 69 and the astrological symbol for Cancer looks like 69, and the word Illuminati is also 69. But the moon being this illuminated object that's important, it's on a 19-year cycle. There's 13 months in a lunar year, so 19 times 13 is also 247. So I think it's very significant that this happened with Twitter and this little puppet Elon Musk on that date in this time period. But notice, from July 24th to January 17th, the day of preparing for Disease X, the rebranding of Twitter to X to preparing for Disease X is 177 days. Klaus Schwab, who is the leader of the World Economic Forum that's putting this on, his name in gematria is 177. And notice the Jesuit order. When you run the alphabetic order forwards, it's 177. When you run it in reverse, it's 201. And again, we've seen these numbers come together so many times, from Klaus Schwab hosting event 201 to, Captain Tom being knighted by the Queen on July 17th and then dying 201 days later from COVID. And remember just how big that ritual was and how he was for the Burma campaign. That's what he was known for. And Burma's government collapsed to its military the day prior. And that government was set up on September 27th, which is the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by Rome. But notice, New World Order is also 177, and Order of Illuminati is 201. And again, I mean, just how could it line up like this and be, anything other than intentional? And let's not forget, the one big 177 ritual that I've documented with Twitter since Elon Musk took over was that he banned Kanye West on the 177th day of his age. We covered that at the time. And there's been a billion other different Jesuit rituals with Elon Musk over the years. And I've probably documented other 177 things with him, but that's the one thing I had documented so far in the time that he's supposedly been the owner of Twitter, which is now X. So 177 days until Klaus Schwab puts on Preparing for Disease X. And again, 201 weeks after the pandemic was declared. And again, they're planning to have this pandemic treaty in May, the month of the Illuminati's founding. And let's not forget this tweet right here from Elon Musk on the 144th day of 2022. Jesuit order alone's 144, like he made his offer to purchase Twitter on 14/4, the 14th of April at $54 a share, when Jesuit orders 144, and when you apply numerology, it's 54. But he did this on the 144th day of the year, and you can see how he had his cursor right here on this graph for fertility rates. And like he was highlighting that's I guess, the perfect fertility rate in his mind, 2.01 children per family, so essentially 2 children. But what are the odds that he would do this with the 2.01 on the 144th day of the year? And remember, essentially, that's what this all comes down back to is population control. Literally every major agenda that's being pushed in the world, from the jabs to, you know, homosexuality to cut off your genitals at a young age, and literally government sponsoring money, putting out money there for young people to do it, even for people who just came across the border, because again, this is a global initiative. The 201 number is omnipresent with all these agendas. It's omnipresent with climate change as well. So don't forget, I mean, it also goes back to that too. Population control, that the reason they want to do that is to save the climate. And if you go back to 1992, when they signed off on Agenda 21, the signing date for that was June 13th, 92, the day leaving 201 days left in the air. And they did that in Rio de Janeiro, which equals 201. And again, just same number all over the agenda, all the way through. In the time of COVID, there were articles written about how the silver lining of COVID was that it was bringing the Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 goals into focus. And don't forget, the Agenda 2030 meeting ended on September 27th, which is the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by Roman history. So, and then about SPARS, the SPARS 2025. Again, They Live is such an interesting movie. Never forget that They Live came out 201 days after Roddy Piper's birthday. And then Roddy Piper, his infamous tweet about They Live being a documentary, that was on September 27th, the important Jesuit day. And then Roddy Piper died at a young age on July 31st, which is the day in history Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, died. And of course, Ignatius of Loyola also equates to 201 in gematria. And let's not also forget that the Johns Hopkins, who's been part of all these simulations and meetings, it was founded by a member of Skull and Bones. What's wrong with me right now? I can't think of his name. His name is escaping me. But if you didn't know that, the Johns Hopkins University was founded by a Skull and Bones member. And Skull and Bones also has that gematria 201, and it goes with the movie The Skulls, about Skull and Bones, coming out 201 days after Paul Walker's birthday. He stars in that movie. He gets the red Porsche in that movie, going with how he died in history and that weird death in a red Porsche. Daniel Coit Gilman finally came to me. That's the Skull and Bones member who founded the Johns Hopkins University. Daniel Coit Gilman. And but for the record, if you read out the Johns Hopkins University, and they do put a "the" in front of it, it equals 322, which is what Skull and Bones refers to itself as. Order 322, and it goes with the founder of the Illuminati, dying on the 322nd day of the year, November 18th, 201 days after the anniversary of its establishment. And the reason for that is probably because Jewish mysticism equals 201, and Jewish mysticism is mostly based in Kabbalah, which has a tree of life, which has 3 pillars and 22 paths. And again, in Genesis 3:22, it mentions the tree of life and knowing good and evil. And the phrase the Holy Bible is also 201. And as we know, all these rituals they do to us are very much biblical. And again, this thing that's coming up, this World Health Assembly pandemic treaty that they're aiming for by May of this year. We were talking about this right when the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, which was a giant 201 ritual in itself. But it was at the exact same time that war broke out that they had their first meeting to talk about this. And the goal was, Bill Gates was, by the way, William Henry Gates' full name equals 201. He was one of the main sponsors of Event 201 with his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And one more time, Melinda, his wife at the time, born on August 15th, which is the Jesuit order's founding date in Paris, just like how the last French Pope was the 201st. But, yeah, and Melinda comes from a family of Jesuit priests. But anyhow, this got swept under the rug when the war took off. People were starting to talk about this, but then the war took it out of focus. But Bill Gates was one of the people spearheading it with the World Health Organization. And it's just like how, when COVID was taking off, Bill Gates had the brand new documentary on Netflix, The Next Pandemic. and he's been talking about the next pandemic, even in the time of COVID, this is going to happen again, and his opinion that there's still not enough lessons have been learned. But what they want to do with this is get all these nations on board with essentially agreed to laws to make sure everybody gets mass vaccinated much faster. And what's frustrating is, if you've never seen the Event 201 simulation, again, if you still have not watched Clade X or Event 201, I've asked people over and over to go back and watch those and share them with their friends and family because it's just unbelievable. But in Event 201, part of the simulation is about censoring people. How are they going to censor everyone? That's part of the discussion. And they agree in the end, they go through different ways to censor people, and then they agree that the flood out method would be the best, which is just like making sure that the algorithm promotes all mainstream information at the top. So if you search for anything, that's all you find. And as we know, YouTube has definitely done that in recent years, but YouTube's also deleting people's content. So they're using multiple different censorship ideas, but it's so annoying that we're still at this day and age where the talking heads on TV are going on there and talking about how effective the vaccine was and how conspiracy theorists who put out misinformation could have cost people maybe thousands, millions of people's lives. And it's just like, this is such bullshit. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, literally, what evidence do they have to support their claims? Again, can I come on? Can I come on as one of the people who's been censored and just talk about my own family? Because, everyone who, first of all, I have a huge family because my mom has so many brothers and siblings and they have so many children. Nobody died in my family from COVID. So just right away, I'm just thinking, okay, this was some horrible pandemic. I have like over 100 people in my family. Not even one died. Not even one. And I mean, they're not healthy. Most of them are like drug addicts. And they might get annoyed if they watch this video. You guys are all a bunch of alcoholics. They're drunks. They're obese. They're overweight. I mean, you look at the majority of people in my family, they're not the healthiest looking group of people. And none of them died. Okay. And again, as far as I know, it was just like when they locked down the country, all their evidence to lock down was people in nursing homes. And since when do people in nursing homes last that long anyway? And let's not forget, it all started up in Seattle where Bill Gates is, and all the companies that profited from Microsoft to Amazon to Costco to, you know how it went. But anyway, like it's just so annoying to listen to the people on TV who still get on and talk about these things because I don't know any proof that the jabs helped anything. Like literally no proof. All the people I know that got jabbed are the same people who just keep getting sick, who seem to have compromised immune systems. I didn't even go through the whole list of people like at Sweet Lady's work. Her main tech, he's like, if he's not sick at least one day a week for the last 4 months, I mean, it's like a good week for him. Literally like missing at least one day a week for some sickness. He keeps having this horrible stomach problem that he never had before. It's like vomiting and diarrhea all the time. Again, one person in their 20s, one in their 30s that just got cases of cancer just like that. Boom. One dead in their sleep. I mean, I'm pretty sure had they not gotten that none of this would have happened to any of them. And like I said, I guess he's my ex-brother-in-law now, my sister's ex-husband. He's got cancer really bad. And they all got the pokey doke. And most of the people I'm talking about work in the medical industry and had to get it. But yeah, so these are my observations for the time being about them doing this on January 17th. And again, Switzerland, where they're having this in Davos, Switzerland. Oh, I forgot to make that point about Davos. In case you forgot this, let me just point this out. The World Economic Forum, where Bill Gates is a member, and I'm sure he'll be there. I just want you to see how Davos, Switzerland equals 68, because again, this is 68 months after the Clade X simulation preparing for disease X. But you see how Davos, Switzerland's 212, 68, and 94? Look at Seattle, Washington, right? 212, 68, 94. Again, coronavirus, spell it right. Coronavirus pandemic, is also 94. It's a huge number in Seattle with their rituals. I was out there opening day of the Seahawks season explaining to them before the game why they were going to lose and Matt Stafford would get his 94th win, as he did. Again, it goes with the Seahawks winning their only season in the 94th NFL season, and then Russell Wilson's grandpa dying at age 94. The Seahawks won the Super Bowl that year. It goes with Kurt Cobain dying in 94 days after Bill and Melinda's wedding. And then it goes with Bill Gates losing his father at age 94 in the time of the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. And it also goes with his mother dying in the year 94, the same year that Kurt Cobain died. And let's not forget that Kurt Cobain died 206 days before Bill Gates' birthday. Of course, that's the Seattle area code. For anyone out there in Seattle, you just saw your coach go to coach Alabama after Nick Saban leaves there with 206 wins. After they lose to the University of Michigan, which is 206 years old, and Michigan Wolverines, which they call the football teams, 206. But again, from scripted football to scripted pandemics to, your simulation upcoming. And by the way, Nick Saban did finish at Alabama with 206 wins, but they vacated 5 of those wins for cheating. So he actually leaves Alabama with 201 official wins. And UA in Jewish gematria for University of Alabama is 201. But yeah. I can even go back to Seattle and how they had those people climbing all over the Strange Fellows building or the Odd Fellows building, why it was 201 years old, that organization, after the 201 ritual with George Floyd. But yeah, all these things literally are rituals. And that's what people need to wake up to. It's not news. It's not real. It's contrived reality. It's essentially mind control, like how mind control equals toilet paper equals coronavirus, and they made everybody go out and buy up all the toilet paper because they scared them on the TV that toilet paper was going to cause a coronavirus shortage, or they said coronavirus is going to cause a toilet paper shortage. And I mean, just nobody stops to even think. Again, in what world does that make sense? Why would there be a toilet paper shortage because of coronavirus? It doesn't make any sense, but they caused a panic. And then next thing you know, social media was full of people, catching videos of people fighting over the toilet paper at the grocery store. We were out in Seattle March 13th, 2020 to educate about Event 201. And we saw that day the toilet paper must have came back in stock at the Kroger because people were coming out with, basket loads of toilet paper. They had to buy it all up before it was gone again. It's just like, again, I mean, that is the problem of not. What we're trying to do here is break the mind control that the TV and the authorities have over people. Because until that mind control is broken, we are going to continue to be screwed. Humanity is going to continue to be led astray. And as long as people, go down the marching line with these agendas, the rest of us get dragged along as well. If they come up with what are they calling this again? A global pandemic treaty. If they put a global pandemic treaty together and everyone says no, then it doesn't do anything. But the problem is we live in a society where the majority will go along with it. And then it makes it dangerous for the people who don't go along with it. Because we'll see what kind of laws and agreements they come to out of this and how enforceable they are. But the thing is, the politicians could follow shortly behind whatever the WHO puts out as this global treaty with the participating nations. Next thing you know, you got the politicians in there, making it the law of the land. And again, during the time of COVID, most things were just signs and requests that were not enforceable. But that's what they're trying to change. They're trying to make it so that there's actual laws and that people have to go out and get the jab. Because that's what they're saying. Not enough people got it. They didn't get it fast enough. And I mean, it's gross how this can just change overnight, right? But once upon a time, it took like at least a decade to develop a vaccine, a safe vaccine, because there's been problems with vaccines in the past. They had to stop the polio vaccine, for example, because it was killing people. Then they had to bring it back years later when they said it was safe. But even then they were pushing it on groups of people that didn't really need it, because usually if you were born and grew to be past age 2, 3 and didn't have polio, you were usually set for life. But then when they had that vaccine out, they wanted everybody to go out and get it. And by the way, if you don't know where the first polio vaccine was given, let me show you this. Arsenal Elementary. that the name of it, if I'm remembering this right? Here it is. Yeah. The first people in the world to get the polio vaccine were at Arsenal, which is like military, like how Operation Warp Speed was a military program. Arsenal Elementary School. And it was done on the 54th day of 54. How nice. Jesuit order, of course, is 54. You know, Cable 54 is the enemy of the world, and they live. And let's not forget, just last week on the 54 date numerology, you supposedly had armed gunmen hijack a TV studio in Ecuador. Had to be a tribute to They Live. But notice Arsenal Elementary School, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know, full location, school, city, state, 201, right? If there was ever a 201 that was a stretch that I presented, you could argue it was that. But again, another huge number with the Jesuits is 54. And by the way, the word sun is 54, again, which is at the center of the heliocentric model, where heliocentrism is 201. The point is, these numbers are very Jesuit. Cable 54 is the enemy of They Live, which came out 201 days after Ronnie Piper's birthday. And even beyond the numbers, just the name of the school, Arsenal Elementary School. And were the higher ups already talking about population control as far back as then? I mean, it's not out of the question. It's not out of the question that they were. I think the first population control meetings that are really on the public record are around 1968. Kissinger had a big one in 74. But yeah, for the record, the official definition of arsenal: a collection of weapons and military equipment stored by a country, person, or group. A place where weapons and military equipment are stored or made. And, you know, you just think about Eisenhower leaving office and talking about the military industrial complex and how it can grow to be, you know, beyond our wildest nightmares. Think about how 2 towers became 0 before they became 1 on 9/11. Decades of war. That's wrapping up. Now we got a war on germs. Then we got a war in Russia, Ukraine. Now we got a war in Israel. 201s all over all of these things. And then I just think about the movie, you know, V for Vendetta. And the big date in that movie is November 5th. Remember the 5th of November, which is going to be the election date this year. And again, if you've never seen V for Vendetta, the Wachowski brothers made it, but they wouldn't want to be called that anymore. They'd want to be called the Wachowski sisters because they both converted. And never forget Caitlyn Jenner's 201. Caitlyn really got it moving. But if you've never seen V for Vendetta, it's about a world fallen to wars, terrorism, and viruses. And then let's not forget the Georgia Guidestones that came down 201 days after the Pope's birthday. They had the old 322 on them. March 22nd came down on George W. Bush's birthday. Remember a Skull and Bones that has the 201 and 322 connection. But again, you know, a lot of people celebrated that day when they came down. But I said, I'm pretty sure that's just them getting rid of the evidence of what their world plan is. Again, the first thing etched on there: limit the Earth's population to 500 million people. To the rest of the rules explained to save the Earth. And again, it's the same number they used in that show Utopia that came out in 2013 and Amazon remade during the time of the pandemic. Still haven't seen Utopia. Billionaires fake a pandemic to mass vaccinate the world, to mass sterilize and depopulate, to get the Earth's population down to 500 million. And again, for all the people out there in the world that see what's wrong and are just waiting for Savior to come down from the clouds to save them, remember, the same authorities printed that book, and those authorities control the world by conform or else, and you know, fear this or else. You know, it's the same thing with religion as they do with everything else, from 9/11 and giving up your rights, or terrorist boogeymen are going to get you, or killer cooties, COVID germs are going to get you. It's the same tactic over and over. And really, I mean, the thing that humanity actually has to do, rather than just like believe in mythical people and sky people, is figure out how to organize a network and wake up their neighbor and mobilize against these agendas and against these governments and these organizations and these NGOs and these things like the World Economic Forum. I mean, that is the mission for humanity. And I mean, I've been advocating this for over a decade now. And for half of the time here, I've been spending a lot of money on a website that's censorship free, that gives people the ability to organize a network. That's freetofindtruth.com. And you can get it for your phone and your app too. But I just see there's just such little interest in people actually doing anything. There's a lot of interest in information and getting information and knowing what's going on, but there's almost no interest in doing anything. And I understand a lot of that is circumstance. That is part of what they did to us, is they got us all so busy and on the slave grind. You know, you got to be at that slave job day in and day out to keep up with the bills. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's going to be a day when it's too far down the line, and you know, it could be as soon as later this year. It could be next year in 2025, the year they've been forecasting for some time, including with the SPARS 2025. But there could be a day when you know, you're having to get. It could be several different things. It could be world wars arrived at our shores. It could be like V for Vendetta, where all these things are happening at once. You're having to get mass jabbed. You know, bombs are finally dropping in the Americas for a world war. I mean, and again, if all of this does happen, it'll be because humanity didn't stand up to the agendas. They just kept waiting for somebody to come save them rather than doing something themselves. It's like everybody thought they had no power. And unbelievably, you know, right now people thinking Donald Trump. It's just, again, I mean, it's just crazy how so many people are still thinking this guy's going to help us. Or did they forget that this is the guy that was the president when all this went down, who just went along with all the orders out of Switzerland? And what's crazy is most people still don't even what's amazing actually is, first of all, most people don't even know what Event 201 is. They definitely don't know what Clade X is. They don't know that Clade X happened 666 days before the pandemic was declared. But they also don't realize that Trump was at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland the day that coronavirus was confirmed in the US. I mean, and by the numbers too, as I've covered in my book a number of times. But yeah, it's just, you know, every day's a number ritual. Trump's got 48% of the caucus goers in Iowa, when Iowa and Donald Trump are 48. And you run it in reverse, they're both 60, like it's the 60th election. And his wife died 60 weeks into the Jesuit Ignatian year. And of course, he's a Jesuit, having attended Fordham. But yeah, it's insanity. I mean, people are insane to think that this guy is the answer. You know, a real leader would have said, "F you, Switzerland." What'd you say? 99.9% survivable unless you're like old and dying in a nursing home? Oh, I'm not tripping. Here, bring it on. Just like I said, I'm not worried about this. I wasn't worried for 1 second about the cooties. Nope. I don't think we're going to lock down and ruin everybody's freedom and their businesses and just make things better for Walmart and Amazon. I don't think we're going to do that. It doesn't sound very American. That's what a real leader would have done. This guy, you know, got the bankers super rich. What was it? 6.2 trillion? Is that what he signed off on initially? And then there was a few more. People are all excited about getting $1,000 in the mail. And what I tell you back then, I said, okay, you think that's going to be good, huh? Just wait until inflation hits. And that's annoying too. It's just like, oh, well, the inflation got worse at the time of Biden. It's like, okay, when you print money, there's inflation. That's the way it works. Anytime you print money, and there was record printing of money, so of course there should be record inflation. We explained all this before we even got our $1,000 checks. I mean, we've been on top of all this stuff, and just, it's like, nobody has any common sense. I said back then, I said, you know, for the guy who's retired and has maybe $500,000 in his savings, this $1,000 check, okay, what's that going to do to his $500,000 in his savings when there's inflation, and now that money's worth 20% less? Now it's like he has $400,000. Yay, $1,000 check essentially lost 100,000 net value of his retirement. So it's just, people don't understand the way these games and these systems work, and it's And again, it's because they've raised a populace that's not very well educated, chemically dumbed down, literally, food, water, air, been made to worship authorities. But yeah, the outlook isn't very good. And, you know, shout out to Daria. Daria says Joyce Randolph from the Honeymooners died at 99. News of her death broke before Lions versus Rand game. She's from Detroit. Interesting. Interesting. R.I.P. to her. Thank you, Daria. Um, but yeah, anyway, we'll leave it there for now, True Seeker. Those are my main thoughts. And thank you again to everyone who hits the like and the share. And until next time, True Seeker.